Hello, is anybody listening? Before you proceed to listen to this episode, there's a trigger warning for mentions of sexual abuse. If you are sensitive to this topic, please do not listen to this episode. Enjoy. Hi everyone, welcome back to a new episode. This is your host Chen, and if you're new here, Baguette with an F podcast is a podcast mainly about queerness, but I talk a lot about other topics too. And so some of you might know that in the last episode, you guys had the opportunity again to vote for today's topic, and the topic that won was Sexuality 101, which is one of my favorite topics to talk about. So to begin with, according to Better Health Channel, sexuality is not about who you have sex with or how often you have it. Sexuality is about your sexual feelings, thoughts, attractions, and behaviors towards other people. You can find other people physically, sexually, or emotionally attractive, and all those things are a part of your sexuality. Now, I totally agree with this. I just want to add more that I perceive sexuality as like a mix of a bunch of different attractions. But of course, we gotta keep in mind that sexuality is such a complex thing. Like, I don't think there's a right way to define sexuality. Of course, I believe there's like a base, just like the definition that I state from Better Health Channel. But just like biology is complex, so is sexuality. And so moving on, talking about the attractions that there are, we have of course the sexual attraction, the most famous one. And sexual attraction is defined by the desire to have sexual relationships with other person. And so someone can feel sexual attraction to women, sexual attraction to men, I guess sexual attraction to intersex folks. I'm not going into that very deep because I'm not intersex, and even though I know that intersex people always have existed, I don't think it's like the right topic for me to talk about. I don't think I'm the right person to talk about that. There's also romantic attraction, which is like the desire to have romantic relationships with someone. And again, that can be anybody. We also have platonic attraction, which is the desire to be friends with someone, something like that. Physical attraction, which is related to like hugs, cuddles, holding hands. Those are all like physical. And then we have aesthetic attraction, which is basically me looking at David Tennant and like thinking how hot he is. No, jokes aside, but he is hot for me. Aesthetic attraction is based around you seeing other people and finding them attractive, but you don't feel the romantic attraction. What I mean by that is you don't want to like date them, you just find them pretty. And so me personally, this reminds me that there were times that I found people handsome, pretty, like really gorgeous, and I thought it was romantic attraction, which led to, let's say, huge mistakes of mine, but the past is a past and that's okay. Of course, there are more types of attractions, but I just won't mention them because these are like the basic ones, let's say, and the ones that I'm familiar with. And as you already heard me saying, sexuality is really complex. And so all of these attractions, I believe they are like mixed. Okay? Like, I believe everyone has a unique pattern. I mean, that pattern can change, of course, of their own sexuality. And that's what defines sexuality. So at the same time, I think that sexuality can look like a spectrum, and it's not a black and white thing. Other terms that you might be familiar with is like homosexual, heterosexual, bisexual, pansexual, and asexual. And I mean, some of you probably know about these terms, but in case you are new for this all, heterosexual means that you feel attraction to the opposite sex, let's say. Homosexual means that you feel attraction to the same sex as you were assigned at birth. A boy kissing a boy, a girl kissing a girl. Now, bisexual and bisexuality, I know the meaning, the definition differs from person to person, but it's basically like you feel attraction to two or more genders, and in other cases, people say you like both. But this last one, I don't really agree because, as we all know, intersex folks exist. And so you saying that, oh, there are only two sexes is really not true and you should research. And pansexuality is the sexuality where you like feel attraction towards everyone and you have no preferences. If we think a little bit, someone who's bisexual and someone who's pansexual, they're not really different in terms of practice. I mean, they literally do the same. They date everybody. I think the only difference that I have personally seen is that bisexual folks tend to have a preference. I mean, look at me, in my case, I'm bi-romantic, right? And I feel like more romantic attraction towards men than to women. But that attraction towards women still exists. Of course, there are other labels like omnisexual and polysexual, which I still see as similar. But what I see is that everyone that feels attraction to 2 or more genders are literally doing the same thing in practice. So I guess what differs between them is just like history and definition. Okay, so now that I have said like the main sexualities, I want to go to asexual, which you probably have heard about it. I am asexual. What asexuality truly means is that you don't feel sexual attraction, which is like you don't feel the desire to want sexual relationships. But again, this is a spectrum. So some people can feel a little bit of sexual attraction. That's me. And other people might not feel sexual attraction at all, and that's okay. And just to be clear, since it's different from person to person, some ace folks might even enjoy sex. You know, because it's not something that we can do. Of course we can. We just don't want to. It's like when you have a piece of cake of chocolate and you're like, oh, I don't want this. I mean, I might enjoy it, I might like it, but it doesn't mean I want to eat it. Do you get what I mean? I mean, as far as I know, nobody's allergic to chocolate here, but jokes aside. So no, asexuality is not the same thing as celibacy, as I have mentioned in the first episode of this podcast, probably? Yeah. So just like I said before, it is a spectrum. Some people might enjoy it, some people might be literally disgusted by it, and some people have like no opinion about it. Me personally, I never had sex, so I don't really know, but of course I don't need to have sex to know if I like it or not. I have my days where I literally feel repulsed by the thought of having sex with someone, and there are of course other days where I feel like, I wonder what it feels like. And remember how I mentioned about the romantic attraction? Another thing that I want to talk about is lots of people tend to think that asexual folks don't feel romantic attraction. But I think this is because they don't really study about sexuality. Just because someone does not want to fuck, it means that they don't want any romantic relationship, which is wrong. It's not really related, you know. I mean, it can be related, but it does not necessarily mean that. Of course, there are aroace folks, which stands for aromantic asexual folks. But not every asexual person is a romantic, and not every aromantic person is asexual. So there are asexual folks, just like me, that feel romantic attraction. In my case, I am bi-romantic. So instead of bisexual, it is bi-romantic. I feel attraction to 2 and more genders, and I do have a preference for men, but this is me. So instead of you adding sexual to the end, you add romantic. So like there's heteroromantic, homoromantic, biromantic, panromantic, etc. And since we are talking about romantic attraction, and I probably have mentioned about aromantic folks. Aromantic folks are the people who do not feel romantic attraction, which is like the desire to have a romantic relationship. And some of them might feel little to no attraction. But again, this never stops someone from doing it, you know. Again, the chocolate cake analogy. Just because I have a chocolate cake in my plate, it does not mean that I really want it. And even if I do, I might not even like it. And that happens. Life does not need to be based around the relationship escalator. If you search about the relationship escalator, you will literally find like stairs, like images of stairs, and there are words in each step that defines what you need to follow to have like a successful relationship in life. This is like a definition, a term made by society. I cannot really explain it well because I don't remember very well. But basically, when you meet someone and like you start being acquaintances with them, and then you start becoming friends, then best friends, and then there might be sexual relationships in the middle, and then you start dating, and then you marry each other, and I don't know, you move in and have 3 hamsters, 2 dogs, and 1 cat, something like that. This is like the relationship escalator. I must admit that I had the idea in my head because of my parents. And because of the media that I was consuming, I thought that I needed that to be successful in life. So this thing created by society, if you fall out of the stairs, it's like you're a loser in life, which is not true. Relationships are so complex, and life is not only about sex and love and sex. It is so much more than that. In your life, for example, you have friends, you have pets, you have your family, or even chosen family. And those are as important as romantic relationships. I think us in society, we tend to like glorify what it is considered romantic. And I think that's wrong. I mean, not wrong, but wrong. We shouldn't just focus on that. Also, going back to asexuality, I just want to mention that some asexual folks, they come from different backgrounds. What I mean is, some folks, unfortunately, they are victims of sexual abuse. And I have seen some ace folks saying that they are ace because those bad things happened to them. And it is completely valid. Okay? It is literally so valid. If you're one of those folks, much love for you. You are not alone. And I wish healing to everybody. Also, oh my god, can we like talk about the physical attraction? I genuinely feel lots of physical attraction towards everybody. Every time I see my friends, I'm like, I want to hug you. I want to give you kisses. No, but generally speaking, I consider myself someone, the love language that I have is literally physical touch. So if you find me IRL, I am literally going to squish you and hug the shit out of you. Cause did you know that hugs actually helps you release happy hormones? That's one of the main reasons that I give hugs to everybody. Okay, so now speaking about terms that are related to sexuality, we have the most famous, which is crush. As you might know, crush is someone who you feel romantic attraction to, which is like you want to be in a romantic relationship with them. And by this, you can actually see a difference between sexual and romantic attraction. The next term is squish. And according to Healthline, squish is the desire for a strong, non-romantic relationship that often includes elements of emotional depth or intimacy. It's considered the non-romantic version of a crush. I have heard of this term before because there was this phase, let's say, where I thought that I might be a romantic, which just turned out to be me scared of intimacy. But that's besides the point. What I see is like besties with benefits, but no sexual thingies or something like that. I might be wrong, okay? I tried to have this kind of relationship before, but again, that was the phase where I was confused. This sounds so homophobic of me. But yeah, if you do know better than me, feel free to comment. We have like a comment section below the episode. Last but not least, we have zucchini, which again, according to Healthline, also known as a queer platonic partner. Zucchinis are people engaged in queer platonic relationships. Now, there was this time where I was with my bestie and we were like trying to discuss whether or not queer platonic relationships were like real close best friends or just something like low commitment romantic relationships. Just a few hours ago, I went to actually research about queer platonic relationships, but I still get a little bit confused because lots of things that they do, I can actually, and I did do, with my best friends, with my close friends, or even romantic partners. So again, if you are an expert on this, like feel free to comment and feel free to educate everybody. I would appreciate that. And so to end this episode, I want to give you a book recommendation. And this is me remembering that in the first 3 episodes, I didn't even give book recommendations because I keep always forgetting for some reason. So this week's book recommendation is Loveless by Alice Oseman. So Loveless is about this girl called Georgia, and Georgia and her friends, they just got out of high school and they are going to university. And so Georgia has this idea in her head, which is like she wants to be in a romantic relationship. She also wants to experience sex. Problem is, Georgia, she never felt any of that. She never felt any romantic attraction. She never felt any sexual attraction, maybe aesthetic attraction. And so in Loveless, it's like a whole journey of her discovering herself, being in denial phase lots of times, but it is really beautiful, and oh my god, every time I remember the scenes, it makes me cry because it is genuinely so accurate. So if you're Ace or Arrow, or you just want to study more about Arrow Ace folks, Loveless is a really good book. Okay, so everyone remember to follow me at my socials at bargainwithanf.podcast on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. On YouTube, we have the same episodes, but with subtitles, because I know there are folks that struggle to understand what I'm saying. I am one of those folks. And you can also follow me at Faget Podcast on Twitter. The username on Twitter is different for reasons mentioned in the trailer of the podcast. If you can, please do give a 5-star rating. It does help me. Subscribe on the YouTube channel. And yeah, I love you all. Please take care and kisses. Mwah, mwah, mwah.